Hi, it's Dr. JP, and I wanted to read today Cinderella. This is the illustrated by James Marshall version, and why don't you come right over here and let's get started with Cinderella, retold by Barbara Carlin. So, Cinderella. Once there was a widower with a kind and beautiful daughter, and life was sweet in their simple cottage, until the widower decided to remarry. And not knowing the ways of the world, well, he married a vain and horrible woman who had 2 daughters, and they were as vain and horrid as she. What a stupid little house, they said when they got to the house with all their stuff. And there was Cinderella. And the widower's daughter, she was made to work like a servant in her own house. And soon she was run ragged because she had to do all the washing and ironing, scrubbing, dusting, and cooking heaps of food. And the lady would just eat. And the stepsisters, well, they took away the bed of the poor girl, and now she had nowhere to sleep. She had to sleep in the ashes and cinders of the fireplace. And from that time on, they say, your name is gonna be Cinderella, because you're so ugly and you sleep in the fireplace. You're so dirty. Now, it happened that the king of the land, he had this handsome son. And the king's greatest desire was to see his son get married. So he said, my son's kind of lazy. I think I'm going to get him married. I think I'm going to have a ball and all the fair maidens in the land to come. Delivered the royal invitations. And they were overjoyed because they said, they each thought they were going to win the king's favor. And because she was trying to make her stepsisters look beautiful by helping them get ready for the ball. And they said, oh, wouldn't you like to go to the ball too, Cinderella? They teased her cruelly. And Cinderella said, oh yes, I would like to go. Don't be ridiculous, said her stepsisters. What would a wretched mouse like you do at a fancy ball? You're so ugly. And you know what? Poor Cinderella. Thinking themselves beautiful beyond words, the stepsisters, they left for the ball. Don't be a lazy bones while we're away, the stepsisters said to Cinderella. You do some work, keep working, and think about all the fun we're gonna be having, and you're not. And after the stepsisters had gone, Cinderella had to go back to work with her chores. And she wept bitterly while she worked. And someone said, you know, you look so miserable, child. And it was a kind voice. And she looked up and she said, what? Who are you? I? Do you know who I am? I'm your fairy godmother. Why are you crying? No, well, I really want to go to the ball. Well, that shouldn't be too hard to arrange, but look at all these dishes they make me do. Well, you gotta do what I say. First, I want you to fetch me a nice big pumpkin from the garden. What? Got you a nice big pumpkin from the garden. So Cinderella went out and brought the biggest pumpkin in from the garden she could find. Now, said the fairy godmother, I need you to get 6 white mice and a fine fat rat. What? So Cinderella bought her 6 white mice from the trap that she had and a fat rat. And finally, the fairy godmother says, you need finally to give me 2 lizards, and look behind the watering pail. I think they're over there. So she looked behind the watering pail, and there were the 2 lizards. So, with the touch of her wand, the fairy godmother changed the pumpkin into a magnificent coach, and the mice into 6 white horses, and the rat into the jolly coachman, and the lizards into 2 sleek footmen. Lovely, said the fairy godmother. Off you go. Oh, but am I supposed to go all dressed up in these rags? Oh, wait, no. We gotta get you a dress. So she transformed Cinderella's filthy rags into an elegant gown, and on her feet she placed a pair of sparkling glass slippers, and she said, now you're ready. But remember something. You gotta return home before the stroke of midnight. Otherwise, this will all change back to what it was before. Okay, I will obey. Don't forget that. I won't. And Cinderella climbed in, and she was off to the ball. And at the palace, the prince, he learned that an enchanting maiden had arrived, and he greeted her himself. But the other guests were kind of puzzled because they said, who is this beautiful stranger that the prince is looking at? Everyone seemed to be curious, and the prince seemed to only have eyes for Cinderella. And he wanted to dance every dance with her. And Cinderella found herself deeply in love with the prince. She was so happy that she took no notice of the hour, and then the clock struck 12. Oh no, I forgot. Oh no. Hey, what's going on? I gotta go. And Cinderella ran from the prince's arms out of the ballroom. Where are you going? Down the steps of the palace. And in her haste, she lost one of her glass slippers while she was running. Wait, where are you going? Cried the prince. I don't even know your name. And she got into her coach, but didn't even tell her name. And Cinderella's coach sped away from the palace, but at the stroke of 12, the fairy godmother's warning had come true. The coach changed back into a pumpkin, and the horses back into mice, and the coachman back into a rat, and the footman back into lizards, and Cinderella was once again back in her old rag clothes. But you know what? The prince found the tiny glass slipper, and he said, I am going to find who wears this glass slipper. And he tried it on all of the maiden's feet in the whole kingdom. But no one fit the shoe. And when he got to Cinderella's house, the eldest stepsister says, me first. And she put her foot in, but she could only get her toes into the slipper. And then the younger stepsister says, my turn, I'm going to fit. And she tried to put her foot at the prince, And she pushed and shoved and grunted and groaned, but the slipper would not fit. But then Cinderella was watching, and she goes, "Can I try it on?" And the prince said, "Okay." And the glass slipper fit perfectly on Cinderella's tiny foot. And he said, "Oh, now you're my princess. I found my princess." "What? What?" "We will get married tomorrow." And on that festive day, the kingdom rejoiced. And Cinderella, well, she was forgiving of her family. And she moved her family into the palace. And she found a lord of the court for each of her stepsisters to marry. And then Cinderella's fairy godmother, she moved in too, because she wanted to make sure everybody lived happily ever after. And there was no more meanness. The end. And there's the old coachman. Well, that was a good version of Cinderella. I hope you liked it. There's so many of them, but that was a great one. Thank you for listening.